Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Korinna, your human design and alignment guide.
And I am Skylar Shea, your personal energetic guide, intuitive cheerleader, and high-level professional coach.
And welcome to Raise Your Freak. We created this podcast because we are driven to live to our fullest potential and want to share our experiences and obsessions with the frequency-curious individuals out there. We go live every Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom, so you can be part of the conversation.
I'm so excited about all of this because I love podcasts, but I always find myself wanting to ask questions. By offering you the opportunity to join us live, this means you can ask your questions in real time.
Each week, you can expect various conversations regarding all things human frequency, as well as support to help you integrate.
We understand the importance of tending to your frequency and engaging in topics as it helps you along your path to expansion and alignment.
Our goal is to help you feel a part of a community as you navigate your journey through this lifetime.
We look forward to connecting with you every week live at our Zoom headquarters, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I think we covered everything, Skylar.
I think so too.
Okay, let's dive in.
Welcome to the country. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. It's so beautiful today and the breeze, and I love it so much.
Me too. It's also just to be outside and be doing this and like nature feels very natural for the conversation we're having.
Yeah, I love it. Skylar messaged me this morning, was like, "Hey, I have an idea. Do you want to record this together outside?" And my sacral was like, fuck yes. So I'm so glad you messaged.
And I was listening to my emotional wave through it too, because I woke up at like 7, went down to the water and was just like acknowledging to myself, like, okay, this day might go one of two ways. It's either going to be sludging through what I have to get done for the day, or how can I get this all done in the way that's going to light me up the most? And so then when that question was proposed to me by myself, I then answered it by saying, oh, like being outside to do this would be amazing. And actually being in Korinna's energy would be also really great. So I asked her and here we are. And it's great. And I actually had like tears of joy when I drove here today. I was like, this is a bit obnoxious. It was amazing.
I love it so much.
So yeah, so here we are. And today we're talking about human design. This is Korinna's domain. This is what she is most, well, maybe not most passionate about, but has a lot of friggin' passion for.
Yep.
So we'll be kind of creating this more as like me kind of asking her questions and just listening into her wisdom and insight. And what's so amazing is I've like had multiple readings with Korinna now, and every time I have a reading with her, I learn more. I know more about myself. I get to understand more of who I am. And that's really what human design is all about. This is my perspective, and then I'll ask Korinna hers. It's dissecting your energy blueprint in order to understand how your energy and your inner wisdom speaks to you most effectively. Now, how was that as a definition of human design?
I love it. It that's really what it is. Human design, it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint of who you are authentically, and it shows us how you're meant to operate in the world. And it shows polarity as well. So it's like you have a choice. We're human beings. We have free will. I know that's probably up for debate, but I choose to believe that we have free will. So we can choose to live a life of flow by honoring things within our human design, or we can not and kind of trudge through life and hit up against the world, and then we'll feel those like in our charts.
So for you, I would love to start off with what made you discover human design, and how did it
change you? Thank you for that question. So I have been on this path of discovering myself. I was always the type of person curious, always like there's more out there than what just meets the eye. So I've been doing many, many years of exploring different modalities, different thoughts, exploring myself. It was about 4 years ago now. I was doing Lacey Phillips To Be Magnetic. It's a community that she has. And I was listening to her podcast at the time, and she had Mark Groves on it. Now, Mark Groves, he's Canadian. He's a relationship whiz, truly. He's really remarkable. I love listening to him. And she was asking him what his human design was. And he answered like, oh, I think I'm a manifester. And I had to put it on pause because I was like, wait, what's this human design thing? So I Googled it, and it asked for your birth time. And what's so interesting is that my mother always instilled my birth time into my brain. I was born at 12:21 in the afternoon, which is really fascinating because my mom is a very religious person. So the fact, because your birth time is so heavily linked to astrology, I find it beautifully serendipitous that my mother thinks birth time is very important, because in this world it really is. And so I put in my birth information, and then this chart popped up, and that was all it took. If you ever looked at a human design chart, that's all it took for me to be like, I need to know more. And then I took a deep dive.
Amazing.
And then your second, oh, how has it changed me?
Yeah.
So I took the deep dive for about 3 months. I tried to inhale as much as I could. I was telling my friends, have you ever heard of human design? Have you heard of human design? And I then stopped. It was like a few months where I was like, okay, that was a lot. And I started to get this pull to get back into it again. And I received an email from Sort of Spiritual, who is my now teacher. And it was like, you have until 10 p.m. And it was literally like 9:45 and I was at work. You have until 10 p.m. to get my course at this, she had launched it to get at this price, and all of this is included. And something within me said, do the goddamn thing. And since then, my life has honestly completely changed. I always say, is it the chicken or the egg? Because it's like, was my path already on this trajectory, or was it because I discovered human design and really started to experiment with it? Am I now where I am? It's so hard to say. Do I link it directly to human design? I do, because that was the tie that like led me this way. But I'm now like living in the country. I have a beautifully expansive relationship with a partner. I'm now sharing human design with the world, and I'm living a much more peaceful life. I'm really trying to not force as much, and it's taken a lot of deconditioning to get to where I am, but it's every day life reveals itself in new and unusual ways, which has been really cool.
So beautiful. So you mentioned about the deconditioning, and I think for myself, when I learned about human design, that to me was like the biggest aha moment, because you're starting to realize when you learn about human design just how unique your own energy type is. And then as a result of that, how different we all are, and that we don't all operate the same way, and we don't all have to operate the same way. And in fact, how we are moving in society these days, especially if you are familiar with sort of astrology, this might be a little too much for some people, but we're moving into this more Aquarius state of how society operates and works, and we were in a Capricorn state. So in this Aquarius state, it's much more about how do you individually offer yourself to this world? What can you do to share your gifts with this world? And so we're seeing that already with how people are working. There's so many more people that are removing themselves from the corporate life and creating ways to make money for themselves that really light them up. And human design is such a perfect tool to use to start to learn who you truly are, away from the conditioning of what society or your family or your friends have made you believe about yourself. And what I would love to ask you next then is, what are we looking at when we're looking at human design? What do we start with? And can you explain to me, how am I different from how you're different?
Absolutely. So I first want to say human design is really a synthesis of 5 modalities. So we have astrology, we have the Kabbalah tree of life, the I Ching, the chakra system, and also quantum physics. And each of them play a role, whether it's large or small, within this synthesized modality of human design. So I think the best way to really explore it is, let's bring up our charts, because then we can see just how different we are, because human design is really the science of differentiation. Here, when you look up your human design chart, this is what you're going to look at. You're going to look at this. So there's 9 from the chakra system. They're all connected through what looks like these lines or channels. That's taken from the Kabbalah tree of life. And in there's all these numbers. Those are all the different gates, and everything has energy to them. And everything lives in polarity. So we have low expressions and high expressions in everything. So starting at the top, you have the crown center. Right below that is the ajna or third eye center. Below that's the throat. And then below that is the G center, which is located in your heart space. That's the diamond in the center. And this is where things go a little different from the chakra system, because we evolve, and we evolve from a 7-centered being to a 9-centered being. And we continue to evolve because the emotional solar plexus, which is the one on the very right, is actually going to be mutating, and we're going to become 11-centered beings down the road. Between the emotional solar plexus and the G center is what's called the will, or the ego, or the heart center, the small little triangle between the two. Below the G center is the sacral center. Below that is the root. And then the one that's off to the left is the spleen. Each one of them has their own different energies. Where you see things colored in, what that means is this is energy that's defined by you. They're colored in based on basically the location of the planets and where they were in correlation with the mandala wheel at the time of your birth and about 3 months prior. Imagine this chart. There's a wheel there's 64 gates, and they're all around this chart. And the planets move counterclockwise, except for the nodes of the moon, they move clockwise. And these are just snapshots in time, 2 snapshots. I go into a great deal about planets in my new video out now, shameless plug. So go check that out, because I think it's a really interesting way of understanding how the planets do affect us. They do affect us because of neutrinos, which is definitely a topic that we'll discuss in another podcast. Not to get too sidetracked. So on the left is Skylar. Up at the top, you see that she's a 5-1 emotional projector. And then I'm on the right. I'm a 3-5 sacral generator. So let's start with the first thing. What's a projector and what's a generator? There are basically 5 energy types within our human design. This is like an overarching umbrella. There's projectors, there's generators, there's manifestors. Then there's a hybrid of a manifesting generator, and then there's a reflector. Basically, what determines this is what is defined, what centers are defined in your chart or what's not. So for example, we'll take me. There, second from the bottom, you see the sacral center, you see it's colored in. So again, whatever colored in is defined within us. This is consistent energy that we feel. That sacral center is what automatically makes someone a generator. The sacral center is like a self-sustaining energy center. So think of what a generator does. It produces energy. So it gives people like me the self-sustaining energy to see things to completion. We are the quote unquote workers of the world. We are here to do things that light us up, that give us joy, including the manifesting generators. We're about 67% of the population. So over half, almost 3/4 of the population are generators. So we live in a generator world. Think about it. Think of all the workers in the world. We are that natural energy. On the left-hand side, Skylar is an emotional projector. So basically, to be a projector, 1, you cannot have the sacral center defined. And 2, you can have your throat center defined, but it cannot be connected to a motor. Don't worry about that too much. What this says is that she is a projector. Now, projectors are about 20% of the population, so not as much as the generator energy type. And they are really here to guide. They have an ability to see people, specifically one-on-one, see people in a way that oftentimes people don't see within them. Each projector has a natural inherent gift to them that they're here to share with the world. And oftentimes, one of the biggest processes or most powering process that a projector goes through is discovering that gift and really leaning into that and then guiding the way. On top of that, so we have the emotional and the sacral. So this is your decision-making process. So one of the biggest conditionings that we all experience as people is that we are supposed to make decisions with our mind. Think about it. Make a pros and cons list. What are you doing? Use your head. Well, what do you think about it? What's interesting is that the mind, if we all know or not, is it likes to solve problems. We use practices like meditation, for example, to quiet the mind because the mind is a very powerful thing. It can overwhelm us. It causes us anxiety. So we are not actually meant to be making decisions from this space. There's more technical reasons when it comes to human design, but I'm going to leave it at that. So, for example, Skylar, she's an emotional projector. About 50% of the population has emotional as their authority. Think about emotions. Think about how powerful that they are. Think about when you're experiencing big emotions or small emotions. Think about when things happen to you and how they affect you emotionally. So for people that have the center defined, what happens is they experience what's called an emotional wave. Have emotional highs and emotional lows. And I know that people out there that are listening to this right now are probably going to be nodding their head or probably going to be confused because they're like, that doesn't resonate with me. And you're meant to make decisions from a calm clarity. Me, on the other hand, I'm completely open in that center. Wherever we are open or wherever we are white, this is where we're taking information in. It's not that we don't have any energy here. What it means is we're actually meant to taste the world from our openness. Having it completely open means that typically when I'm by myself, I'm very even keeled. I don't I don't wake up one morning and I'm in a bad mood for absolutely no apparent reason. Or I don't wake up in the morning and I'm like high on life, right?
Truly, that is me. I'm listening and being like, oh, wait, not everyone
I wake up the same. And when I start going out and interacting with life, that's when I really start to feel things. When I'm watching a movie, what happens when you're open is you take in energy and you amplify it. When I feel emotional energy, it's honestly overwhelming to a point that I don't know how to handle it. For example, my partner is an emotional projector, much like you. And when he has a highs and his lows in his emotional wave, to me, it feels like chaos. So it takes me like a while, talking hours to like get through his energy where 20 minutes later, he's totally fine.
Mhm.
And then I'm still like shaking and like crying because I can't process his emotional energy the same way he does because he has a natural flow to life.
So would you say that people without the emotional wave tend to be a little bit more empathic in their own ways too?
Yeah. So when we talk about empathy, having that emotional solar plexus open, there's two areas that you really feel empathy.
Mhm.
One is the emotional solar plexus,
Mhm.
which I have it completely open. So you literally feel the emotional feelings around other people. And then the second place is the heart space, which you
Mhm.
have open.
Mhm.
And that is where you feel empathy there. You feel that G center, that's our love space and our identity center. So you're feeling other people's identity, you're feeling other people's love,
Mhm.
and you're taking that in and you're amplifying it. So that's how you feel that energy from others.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really cool,
It's really cool.
So same thing. For example, I have my crown and my third eye, my ajna center undefined. Skylar has it defined. So let's explore those differences.
Mhm.
So for me, having those two centers undefined is really being truly open-minded. Again, this is where I take in and I amplify. So I'm meant to explore different ideas, different concepts without becoming too attached to them. However, that can overwhelm me. My partner, like you, has the crown and the third eye defined, loves podcasts. He
Mhm.
listens to them all day, every day.
Mhm.
He's constantly taking information and it goes in and it's there. He will bring up like a piece of information that he heard 7 years ago and be like, oh yeah, and this is this. And I'm like, how do you know that? Information goes into your mind and stays in there.
Mhm.
But for me, it's not like that. It's chaos. Or if you ask me, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I need like 3 to 5 business days to get back to you because I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, it becomes overwhelming. Really, I don't pay attention to the news anymore. I'm mindful of like the information I take in. And also meditation practices are good for both type of people for
Mhm.
different reasons.
Mhm.
But for me, it's really all about settling the jumbled mess of ideas in my brain.
Mhm.
Whereas for someone like you, it's all about just quieting the mind,
Mhm.
right?
So one of the coolest ways that I really noticed this difference between the two of us was when we were traveling together last year.
Yes.
And it had a little bit to do also with maybe our profiles, which
Mhm.
maybe you'll get
Yep.
into in a minute. Um, but just even the way of like making decisions about like what to do for the day or what direction to take or like planning things. And because Korinna knows my human design so well as her own, at so many different points was able to give me permission slip to allow me to take the lead in ways that I wouldn't have necessarily acknowledged that I would have been better to take the lead at. And so maybe you can explain that from your perspective a little.
Yeah, I love that. So now we're diving in a little bit further and we're taking a look at the profile. So the profile is the numbers. So the 5/1 and the 3/5. Those are taken from the lines in your sun and earth. If you're looking at the top two numbers on both sides, the personality side is what's your conscious side. So that's the moment of your birth, and your design side is about 3 months prior. So you can see that Skylar is the 0.5. That's what we're talking about. There's 6 lines. That's from the I Ching, different story for a different time. So she's a 5/1 and I'm a 3/5. Each of the 6 lines carries, it's like the costume that you wear in this lifetime. It shows us your learning style. I like to view profile as this is how you take in and make sense of the world to then rise and become more empowered in expressing the information that you find. So she's speaking specifically to the first line. Think of like the foundation of a home. To have a good foundation, you need stability. So the first line, all about receiving and learning information, they're called the investigator. They're all about doing the research to feel secure, to then make the next step as to what am I meant to do. So having that first line in your profile means that you just have a natural knack of doing the research.
Mhm.
You have a natural knack of getting the information that you need.
Mhm.
These are the scientists of the world, the people that are going to read all the reviews. I'm going to figure out this is the information that I need to then make a confident decision moving forward. The second line is called the hermit. So these people are like natural. These people have natural gifts, natural abilities to them. When we look at the lines, it's like you graduate to the next line. So the second line has just natural gifts and natural abilities to them, but they really need alone time to integrate. That
Mhm.
really is helpful for them. They can get very used to being a hermit, so they need other people to call out their natural gifts for them to then share. The third line, so you see that on my side, that's called the experimenter. And these people really learn through trial and error. My business is called 3/5 by Design because of this reason, because I really resonated with my profile. It's the first thing that I resonate with. I'm like, okay, this is legit. And it's because of this, this specifically this third line of this is the people who have many relationships or who go to school for many different things, or they try again, have many different friends. But what they learn is what works and what doesn't, but they got to experience it. They don't learn from necessarily from learning from other people. They got to do it. They got to get their hands dirty in order for it to happen, right?
So one thing about this, and I know, so when I work with clients one-on-one in my optimization portal, they receive a one-on-one session with Korinna. What Korinna is able to provide and give is that permission slip, that knowing, that understanding of what their human design blueprint looks like. And I had one client in particular who has that 3 profile. And when she was able to learn about that, she was able to have this aha moment of, oh, like I always had so much shame around the fact that I don't necessarily complete things or don't always finish things. And being able to have this reflected back to her and acknowledge that actually this is a part of her process. This is what gets her to the next stage, to the next stage. And when she was able to see that perspective shift, this is a woman in her 60s that was able to see that, oh, you're right. This patterning is actually what has gotten me to where I am now, not a hindrance to me. But there was all this shame because it's not the way that others operate.
The biggest thing about the third line is, obviously, it can feel uncomfortable if like you do something and then it doesn't work the first time or the second time or the third time. And you can really get down and hard on yourself. You can say like, why can't I get this right? What am I doing wrong? Here's the gift about that is that you're going to get it right. You need to allow yourself to continue experimenting. Third lines are incredibly resilient. Like they are the try again people. And as long as that isn't shadowed or that isn't shunned upon, they are allowed to really get curious in life. Everyone has wisdom in their own right, but that's how they really flourish, is by allowing themselves to
Trust their
process. It's so huge.
So I want to just, before we move on from the profiles, because we didn't even get to all of them, but again,
45 minutes.
This is the importance of diving into it yourself. And what we should have maybe mentioned at the beginning, but we're mentioning now, is that in the show notes, we'll actually leave a link so that you can find your own human design blueprint. So you can get started doing this. If you haven't done it before, you can get started doing this totally for free.
Yeah.
But if you're like listening to this and you've been doing it for free a little bit and you're like really wanting to dissect more and get to know more, I highly recommend booking in a consult or finding a way to add some more information in for yourself. Korinna will explain that a little bit, because coming back to the profile and why I'm bringing this up is, if you see on our profiles, we have one number and then we have a slash and then we have the other number. So the 5 for me is conscious, that I am more aware that this is a part of who I am, whereas that 1 is not so conscious. And so therefore, as the example within my own energy type, we've talked about the 1, it's like the investigator. Based on my schooling experience and my formal education experience, think that I'm like an overly good researcher by any means, because I don't know, I had to work to do research projects. I had to work to get to the research. So I feel like there was a bit of a belief system in me that if school didn't necessarily come easy for you, then you're not smart. And so this aspect, this research aspect, though, it actually did come really easy to me, and it does come really easy to me. And it wasn't until Korinna pointed it out to me when we were traveling, where she was like, I think you need to just look this up because I'm not finding anything. And I look it up and like within 2 seconds, it's like, oh, we have to go this way and then this way and let's go. And she's like, wow, see, it's so much easier for you to just find the things that we need to know. And that was the first like light bulb moment to me, that I'm like, oh, this is really easy for me. I see that within my own work, how that's evolved, is that when I'm researching something, for instance, and a perfect example in my transmission club, so my monthly community or my weekly community group, and so we meet every Wednesday mornings, and I do some sort of a transmission or hypnosis and energy healing circle to support wherever the group is at. And so this week was all about imposter syndrome. And so one thing that I intuitively downloaded while I was doing my meditation, preparing my meditation for the group, was I don't remember how I explicitly said it, but I said something along the lines of like, if a prime minister or president can become a prime minister or president without needing any proper educational qualifications, whatever we're feeling worried about and not feeling ready for, we can do too. If someone can step into presidency and doesn't need a proper law degree or proper political degree to go in there, why are we so stressed about our own certifications? So that was downloaded to me. And then I literally took 2 seconds to do a little research to make sure that was actually true. And it was. And
Which is insane.
In my past, I wouldn't have even allowed myself the acknowledgement. This was like happening 10 minutes before I was about to go live. So it was like, oh, I wouldn't have enough time to actually research and know that. So I'm not going to even put that in there. Whereas like that was one of the best parts, I think, that really helped with the perspective shift for a lot of people. It really hit home. It was coming through my intuition. And then I just did a quick research because of the confidence that I now have in knowing how well I am at investigating, that boom, it all just clicked into place. So again, for me, human design has been so helpful in helping me just be who I am.
So I love that you say this, because here's the thing about human design. It shows you how you're meant to make decisions. It shows you your gifts, your learning style. It shows you what your life purpose is. It shows you what you're here to bring to the world. It shows you how you're best to navigate the world so you can have ease and flow and things naturally come to you. It shows you who you are. And then it shows you who you are not. And what you are not is your conditionings. Now, conditionings are unavoidable. They happen from family, from friends, from teachers, from peers, from society. Conditioning can be good. It teaches us how to be in a family unit. It teaches us so many different things. However, there are some that aren't correct for us. And so by using human design to see who you are versus who you are not, what that does is it empowers you to say, I'm going to step into who I am, and I'm going to let go of the shoulds and the coulds and the woulds that I've been told in the past. And I'm really going to start aligning with who I am. That's the biggest gift, is it gives you licensing to be who you are.
You start to get to know who you are, but that can also feel really uncomfortable.
Damn straight.
Really uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
So what I really like about how Korinna and I sometimes work together is that when people are in my optimization portal, it's a coaching container that helps you to release the conditioning, to clear the conditioning. And so you're learning about how your energy works for you. You're learning about how your inner wisdom truly works for you. I think a lot of people hesitate on working with other people because it's like, oh, but I can figure this out myself. And for sure, we can figure things out ourselves. But there are some times where we need a little bit of help shifting our neural pathways, unlocking our energy because it's been stagnant, because we haven't been operating in our most authentic way. And that I help facilitate, that I help support you with, to get you back to the truth of who you are. And you also get to learn so much about who you truly are, which the combination of both, it's a beautiful way to see, and like seeing clients stepping through and coming through and acknowledging and shifting careers or shifting the way that they show up in their family in a way that allows them to do so with less pressure, less burnout, less stress, and more pleasure, more ease. The chaos still exists, but how you relate to the chaos becomes completely different.
Yeah, it's so true. At the end of the day, we are souls living a human existence, and humanity lives in polarity, and we see that polarity within our chart. There's beautiful gifts in every single center and every single gate and every single channel, but there's also low expressions. The spleen, for example, all of the high expressions are very intuitive, but then all the low expressions are all fear, a lot of fear. So there's low expressions and there's high expressions and everything. So by noticing that and noticing how when we're operating in this human life on a day-to-day basis, when we feel the anxiety or the fear or the hesitation step in, we can say, oh, I'm in my not self. I want to shift that. And human design shows us ways that you can shift that into being more aligned with who you are, which is pretty cool to have that type of awareness can really help you step into that divine person that you really are.
Knowing what that not self looks like or feels like is different for every profile. For instance, for me as a projector, my not self is bitterness. And now being able to reflect on that and know that back, it's so much easier for me to say no to things or yes to things because already I play out saying yes to it. And if I start feeling bitter about it, it's or like that sense of almost resentment. It's like, oh, dude, that's not right for you. No, no, no. So it really has helped me with my acknowledging when my people pleasers coming in versus when it's actually something that's right for me.
Yeah.
Every profile has a slightly different not self. So for instance, like the concept of being angry doesn't necessarily resonate to me, but that sense of bitterness, holy heck, for sure it does.
Yeah.
Not that there's magic that can be created from bitterness, because Taylor Swift, for instance, is a 5/1 projector. And so her last album was written solely from a place of bitterness. But as soon as the album was done, and she's quoted basically at saying, as soon as I wrote that, as soon as I got it out, as soon as I really dove into the bitterness, created something from it, then it was like, it's done. I'm done. It's over. And basically, timeline wise, you can see that she probably got into her next relationship, her more aligned relationship, right after that album was written. And that's an example of you shouldn't be shying away from the bitterness. If you feel the bitterness, lean into the bitterness. There can be creation that comes from the bitterness, especially if you're not avoiding or the not self version, right? Don't avoid it, lean into it, and then that can create something.
Well, the not self always teaches us something. There's always something to be taught in those low expressions. Something is being like that. They say that about shadows. They say that about triggers. Okay, cool. You've been triggered. Oh, hey, your shadow. Cool. Learn from it.
Yeah.
What's it trying to tell you?
Yeah.
Don't just sit there and like be like, oh, I'm gonna be bitter forever. Like learn from it. Create
an album.
Do what you gotta do to move that energy through.
Do what feels good for you so that you can get back into alignment. The not being in alignment, that's gonna happen. That's going to happen. And the more you acknowledge it, the less it happens and the less heavy it feels when it does happen. And so for myself now, like when I do notice that bitterness, it doesn't last for very long because it's like, oh, what's happening here? Like, okay, let me grab my journal. Let me see what's going on. Let me feel into it. I have my own ways based on my own blueprint that help me to facilitate that. And that's another thing that like booking in with Korinna would dive into more too, right? So if we go back to the example of Taylor Swift, she probably has somewhere in her chart like the throat chakra of the communication chakra or something like that, where within her chart you can probably see why using lyrics and creating lyrics and that creativity is such a strong aspect for her that helps her to transmute and come back to her authenticity. And for me, that is, in my acknowledgement, me feeling things. That's me being able to like sense and feel, whether it's within myself or whether it's within someone else, what's going on. And that's one of my magic tricks. That's one of my abilities. And again, got to understand that and learn that even more for myself through human design.
I love it. I'm glad that you bring this up because I'm a big believer of we don't bypass our feelings and we don't gaslight ourselves. But
I love that you say that.
But we also don't build a home there. You know, recognize it, see it, understand it. Don't try and ignore it. Don't try and call it something that it's not. Don't gaslight yourself. Please don't do that. But process it and have tools in your tool belt of the things that work for you to process those emotions, process those feelings, those not self areas that are coming up, to move them through. Otherwise, they stay stuck and stagnant in your body and create havoc.
And if you need help with tools, if you don't have a very good toolbox for yourself right now, then that's another thing that maybe reaching out and diving deeper into some of our work can really help with, especially that optimization portal. You get Reiki trainings in there, you get learning about your human design in there, you get coaching to understand, and then also be taught tools that are going to help you regulate, going to help you live with less pressure and more pleasure. Okay, share with everyone where to find
all the things. So 35 by Design, that's how you find me on Instagram. And my website is 35bydesign.com. I have what's called the Soul Contract. This is a one-on-one and it's 2 hours long. It's not for the faint of heart, but we dive into all aspects of your chart. We go through it with you so you leave maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, but with a deeper understanding of what you're looking at and why, the mechanics of who you are. You also get a detailed ebook with it, as well as a recording of the Zoom. So you can go back to it 100 times if you want to. I've just released, and I'm so excited because I'm announcing it here now, what's called the Unique Expression. This is basically that same thing minus the Zoom. So this is a 40+ page beautiful ebook that is all about your chart, everything about it. So both are on my website. For those of you who signed up for our live, check your emails because you have a little promo in there. As well as I also have my integration stores. What I really wanted was an area for people to have bite-sized learnings about their own personal human design. So on there right now, I have the 5 energy types, which I briefly touched on. There's videos on there. For a really, really great price. I wanted it to be super approachable. As I mentioned, I have a video on the planets and in their influences that they have. And make sure you sign up because I'm adding more videos as I get inspired to share more to help you learn and understand your human design.
We'll leave your website in the show notes to make sure that people can find you. And you can find me at skylarshay.com or on Instagram at I am Skylar Shay. And when you sign up for the optimization portal, it's a 4-month biweekly coaching and you receive the one-on-one session with Korinna. And then I help you with the deconditioning if there's deconditioning that needs to be done. Then I help you how to actually step into it because yes, it can be overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're kind of new to learning about it. And so I want you to not feel overwhelmed. And that's the whole point of working with me in that way. And so reach out. I do have some really good bonuses within, including working with Korinna in that portal right now. So if you are looking for some extra support and extra help, maybe 4 months feels too long. Maybe you want to do it shorter than that. I customize them for people too, these portals. So reach out if it feels of interest to you. And
we're Raise Your Freak.
We're Raise Your Freak. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.